The cargo pod split open like a cracked egg, and chaos erupted in the space station Arivos 9. Technician Ethan Rayner had his hands deep in the guts of an atmospheric processor when a sudden explosion shook the loading bay. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and purple emergency lights flooded the corridors. The station's loudspeakers blared warnings in alien languages, then switched to Galactic Common. Something dangerous was loose. Ethan wiped grease from his hands and stood, blinking at the flashing lights. His heart raced. He grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the main corridor, ready to help, or at least see what had gone wrong. A furry hand suddenly blocked his path. It was a Quellan security officer. Its face was pale, ears flat against its skull. Fear shone in its glowing eyes. "Stay back, human." Ravenclaw breach. "Full lockdown in 30 seconds. The officer said, voice trembling. Ethan froze. Ravenclaw. He had heard stories, chilling tales across 17 star systems. These creatures were small but deadly. Even their cubs had killed trained hunters. Fast, smart, strong enough to open sealed doors. Ravenclaws were known as unstoppable killers. Before Ethan could ask more, the officer sprinted down the corridor, leaving Ethan alone. Heavy blast doors began sliding shut throughout the station. 20 seconds. That was all the time he had to find safety. He paused. Instead of running, Ethan pulled out his handheld device and switched to the security feed in the docking bay. His eyes widened. The creature was small, just a cub, but terrifying. Its scales shifted between deep violet and black under the emergency lights. 6 glowing amber eyes scanned the room. For springy legs and a long tail carried it with perfect balance as it searched for something or someone. Station personnel scattered in panic. A cargo handler tried to lock himself in a storage container, but the cub tore through the metal like it was paper. The handler escaped into a vent, leaving his equipment behind. Then Ethan noticed something others had missed. The cub was limping. Its right rear leg dragged slightly, and a dark smear along its side marked fresh blood. It must have been cut during the crash. And the sounds it made, rumbling and growling, were not hunting calls. Ethan's pulse slowed slightly. He grew up on a farming colony on the edge of human space. Predators were part of life there. He knew the difference between aggression and fear. This creature was scared. The blast door in front of him slammed shut with a heavy thud, sealing him in Section 7, a maintenance area that connected to the lower decks. The Ravenclaw cub was 2 sections away, moving fast according to his device. A buzz on his communicator made him jump. Commander Rawl, a stern Quellan who ran the station, spoke. "All personnel remain in sealed areas. Do not move. Wildlife Control has been contacted. They will arrive in 6 hours. Until then, wait." Ethan's jaw tightened. 6 hours. The cub was hurt, scared, and trapped in the same station. Waiting meant death, either from its injuries or the alien hunters that would arrive to eliminate it. He switched camera angles. The cub had stopped moving, lying in one of the old storage bays of Section 5. Alone, injured, surrounded by strange smells and noises. Panic would make it dangerous, but fear could also be managed. "Commander, this is Ethan Rayner," he said into the communicator. "I have visual on the creature. It's hurt and not acting aggressive." There was a long pause before Rawl's voice came back, tense and sharp. "Ethan, you are a maintenance technician, not a xenobiologist. That thing has killed trained hunters. Stay where you are." Ethan knew the fear was real. Ravenclaws were terrifying, yes, but he also remembered what his grandfather taught him. Fear could be calmed, and understanding could save lives. Predators were not mindless killers. They had instincts, emotions, needs. His eyes fell on the blast door. There was a manual override hidden behind a wall plate. Usually locked, but Ethan had worked on these systems enough to know how to open it. 1 minute of work, and the door could slide open. The communicator buzzed again. "Ethan, acknowledge your orders. Stay in position." Ethan pulled out his multi-tool and began unscrewing the wall plate. His fingers shook slightly. One wrong move and the cub could attack. But if he waited, it might die. The panel came free. A simple mechanical lever lay behind it. He took a deep breath and pulled it. The blast door groaned and began to slide open. "Ethan, what are you doing? Respond!" Commander Rawl shouted in the distance. Ignoring the voice, Ethan stepped through the door. The corridor was dim, lit only by the station's night cycle lights. Gray and blue shadows stretched across the walls, making the hallway seem longer than it was. Somewhere ahead, the cub waited. The smell hit him first: rust, plastic, and something musky and alive. The low rumble came next, like distant thunder. The storage bay door was jammed halfway open. Peering through the gap, Ethan froze. The Ravenclaw cub lay coiled in the corner, amber eyes locked on him. His tail lashed once, twice. His mouth opened slightly, revealing sharp, deadly teeth. Yet it didn't move closer. It was hurt and scared. Ethan slowly lowered himself to the floor, keeping his hands visible. "Easy there," he whispered. "Nobody's going to hurt you." The communicator in his pocket crackled again, but he ignored it. One step at a time, he reminded himself. One calm, careful step closer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ration pack. Standard station food, not much, but it had dried meat strips. He ate one slowly, making sure the cub saw him. Then he pushed another strip toward it across the dusty floor. The cub sniffed the food, then froze, 6 eyes locked on Ethan. A shiver ran down his spine. He knew this moment would decide everything. One wrong move and the cub could attack. But patience, understanding, and calm, these might be stronger than any weapon. Ethan stayed still, watching, breathing slowly. Somewhere in the shadows of Arivos 9, a bond was about to form. And that bond might just change the rules of the galaxy forever. Ethan Rayner stayed on the floor, watching the Ravenclaw cub in the half-lit storage bay. Its amber eyes never left him. The creature's tail twitched, its injured leg flexing slightly, and low rumbling sounds escaped its throat. It was small, but its presence was powerful. Danger was real, but so was fear. The communicator buzzed again. Commander Rawl's voice was sharper this time. "Ethan, I don't know what you think you're doing. That creature is a classified extreme threat. Stay where you are." Ethan swallowed hard. "I see that, Commander. But it's hurt, scared. It's not hunting. We can't just leave it like this." The silence that followed felt heavier than the alarms. Ethan glanced around the storage bay. Broken crates and abandoned equipment were scattered across the floor. Dust hung in the air like tiny stars. Somewhere, the cub shifted, its movement slow and cautious. He thought back to his childhood on Icarus Prime, a farming colony at the edge of human space. Animals had been part of his life. Ravenous grinders, grazing beast horses, even small predators like the local clawcats. He knew fear could make a creature violent, but calmness could save lives. He had seen it countless times. Still, this was different. The Ravenclaw cub had teeth sharp enough to tear through metal. The speed could rival the fastest hunters. And here he was, alone, unarmed, facing something that could kill him in a heartbeat. Ethan's hand rested on his multi-tool. It was a simple human device, but it gave him an advantage. He knew the station better than anyone. He could open doors, navigate maintenance tunnels, and avoid traps. The decision was his: obey orders or risk everything to help the injured cub. He took a slow breath. "I'm not leaving it," he whispered to himself. "Not like this." The cub's growl, or was it a rumble of fear, echoed softly through the bay. Its 6 eyes glowed, watching Ethan's every move. He could see the wound now. A jagged cut along its side, dark blood matted into the scales. Its right rear leg was bent at an odd angle. The injury was fresh. Ethan knew time was critical. The longer the cub stayed alone, the more its fear would grow. If wildlife control arrived first, the creature would not survive. Their protocols were simple: neutralize the threat. There would be no chance for understanding, no chance for mercy. He glanced back at the blast door he had manually opened. Beyond it, the corridor stretched into shadows. Another door led to a maintenance ladder, which could take him closer to the cub. A plan formed in his mind, risky, yes, but the only way to help. His communicator buzzed again. "Ethan, I am ordering you to return to Section 7 immediately." Commander Rawl's voice was filled with exasperation and fear. Ethan ignored it. He carefully stood, making sure his movements were slow and non-threatening. The cub's ears twitched at the sound of his footsteps. He paused halfway across the corridor. The creature had not lunged, had not growled aggressively. Fear, not anger, controlled it. He crouched slightly, keeping his hands visible, and whispered softly, "It's okay. Nothing is going to hurt you. Just stay calm." The cub tilted its head, amber eyes studying him, curious but wary. Ethan took another slow step. "I've seen fear like yours before," he continued. "It's not easy, but calm. Calm keeps you alive." Somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt a connection forming. Humans had tamed predators for thousands of years. Why not this one? The Ravenclaw was more than just a killing machine. It was an intelligent creature, capable of understanding trust. The corridor was quiet now, save for the hum of the station and the cub's soft rumbling. Ethan reached into his pocket again and pulled out the ration pack. He ate a piece slowly, deliberately, showing no trickery. Then he rolled another strip toward the cub. The creature's nostrils flared. It inched closer, tail twitching, amber eyes fixed on the food. Ethan froze, not daring to move another muscle. This was the moment of truth. One wrong step, one sudden gesture, and the cub could attack. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time had lost meaning. Ethan held his breath. The cub sniffed the food, then slowly touched it with its claw. Its eyes never left him. Ethan whispered again, "See? Nothing to fear. You're safe here, for now." The low rumble from the cub's throat shifted slightly. It wasn't a growl. It was curiosity, mixed with caution. Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He had made the first connection. Then the alarms blared again, louder this time. A maintenance drone had detected movement and triggered a warning. Ethan ignored it, keeping his eyes on the cub. Panic could ruin everything, and he would not let fear decide this creature's fate. A shadow moved in the doorway, another security officer. He froze when he saw Ethan sitting on the floor, calm, while the cub inched forward. The officer's eyes widened in disbelief. "Human, what are you doing?" the Quellan hissed. Ethan did not respond. Words might alarm the creature. Instead, he gestured softly toward the ration strip, inviting the cub to come closer. It hesitated, tail flicking nervously, then took another careful step. Ethan's mind raced. Wildlife control could arrive at any moment. He had minutes, maybe less, to establish trust. One misstep and everything would be lost. But if he succeeded, the cub might live, and a bond could be formed that no one expected. He knelt further, keeping his body low and non-threatening. "It's okay. I won't hurt you. I promise," he murmured. The cub shifted again, inching its injured leg toward him. Its amber eyes held a spark of understanding, or perhaps simple curiosity. Either way, Ethan knew this was the start of something new. Commander Rawl's voice echoed faintly through the communicator, but Ethan ignored it. Orders were one thing, compassion was another, and sometimes survival depended on knowing the difference. Ethan reached out slowly, showing his open hand. The cub's tail twitched. Its eyes never left his. A few more steps, a cautious sniff, and the distance between fear and trust began to shrink. Somewhere deep in the station, in the darkness of Section 5, two beings, human and predator, were beginning an unlikely connection. And for Ethan Rayner, the decision was made. He would risk everything to save the Ravenclaw cub. Ethan Rayner stayed crouched in the corridor, eyes locked on the Ravenclaw cub. Amber eyes followed every small movement he made. Its tail lashed cautiously, and each shallow breath made its chest rise unevenly. The injury on its rear leg was clear now, and dark blood had dried slightly on its scales. The cub was fragile, but still a predator capable of lethal speed. He glanced back at the corridor behind him. The blast doors had closed, but his route forward was open. One step wrong, one loud noise, and the cub could strike in an instant. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of his plan. Calm, slow movements, and patience. The cub let out a soft rumble, neither threatening nor friendly. Ethan stayed low and motionless for a moment, letting the creature become accustomed to his presence. He could feel the station's hum vibrating through the floor, every sound amplified in the silent tension of the night cycle lights. Then he moved a careful step forward. The cub's tail twitched sharply, and it crouched lower to the ground, muscles coiled like springs. Ethan froze, holding his breath. For a long second, nothing happened. Then, cautiously, the cub moved a step backward, still observing. "Easy there," Ethan whispered, keeping his voice soft, steady. "No one is going to hurt you. I just want to help." He could see the faint glow of the cub's scales in the dim light, violet and black, shifting as it moved. Its 6 eyes tracked him with intelligence, fear, and curiosity. He was beginning to understand something important. The cub wasn't mindless. It was cautious, scared, and aware. Ethan lowered himself further, keeping his hands open and visible. He pulled out the small ration strip he had prepared earlier and placed it gently on the floor. The cub's nostrils flared, and it sniffed cautiously from the safety of the shadows. Then it inched forward a few inches, claws tapping lightly on the metal floor. The station's alarms blared again in the distance, and Ethan flinched. Somewhere behind him, another security officer cursed and ran past. The cub's ears flattened against its head, tail whipping nervously. Panic flashed in its eyes. Ethan froze. Calm, he told himself. Panic is what makes predators dangerous. Fear is a weapon but also a weakness. Slowly, he spoke again. "You're hurt. I see that. You don't have to fight me. I'm not your enemy." He inched forward another step, making sure his body language remained non-threatening. The cub rumbled softly in response, shifting slightly, then backing up a few inches. It was testing him, measuring whether he could be trusted. Ethan's communicator buzzed faintly, but he ignored it. Commander Rahl's voice was distant, commanding him to return to Section 7. Ethan didn't move his lips. The cub didn't need reminders of humans shouting orders. It needed calm, safe gestures. The corridor stretched ahead, empty except for scattered crates and broken machinery. Shadows danced along the walls as emergency lights flickered. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, but he reminded himself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. He had done this before. Humans could handle danger if their minds were steady. Finally, the cub made a small decision. It stepped forward, limping slightly, toward the ration strip. Ethan froze, letting it approach. A soft growl escaped its throat, more of a warning than an attack. Ethan stayed still, eyes locked on the amber gaze. He could see the intelligence there, the curiosity, the fear, and the recognition that he meant no harm. Step by step, the cub edged closer, until it was just a few feet away. Ethan extended his hand slowly, open and steady. The cub froze, amber eyes scanning the corridor, checking for threats, sniffing the air. Another tense moment passed. Then it took a hesitant step, its injured leg moving carefully. Ethan whispered softly, words of reassurance he had learned as a child when dealing with frightened animals. "You're safe. I won't hurt you. Just a little closer. That's all." The cub inched forward, until the tip of its snout touched the ration strip. Its tongue flicked out, grabbing the food. Then, as if testing the safety of the human, it looked up at Ethan. Its amber eyes seemed to study him, trying to decide whether this strange human was friend or foe. Ethan held his breath, motionless, letting the cub make the choice. Seconds stretched into minutes, and the station hummed quietly around them. Finally, the cub rumbled, a softer, almost satisfied sound, and nuzzled the ration strip again. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. The first step had been made. Trust, however fragile, had begun to form. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed through the corridor. The cub jumped, tail lashing violently. Ethan froze, hands raised, speaking in the same calm, soft voice. "It's okay. It's just the station. Nothing to worry about." The cub took a deep breath and slowly lowered itself again, returning to the ration strip. It ate cautiously, eyes never leaving Ethan. He realized then how delicate this balance was. One wrong gesture, one loud noise, and it could all be undone. He took another cautious step forward, moving closer to the cub. The injured leg slowed it, but it didn't retreat. Ethan noticed the small scars on its scales, remnants of past encounters, proof that this creature was a survivor. It had faced danger before, yet here it was, vulnerable, trusting a human for the first time. Minutes later, Ethan pulled out another piece of dried meat, showing it to the cub before placing it on the floor. The cub sniffed, nudged it forward with its snout, and took a small bite. Step by step, trust was being built. Somewhere far down the corridor, security officers whispered and stared in disbelief. No human had ever survived this close to a juvenile Ravenclaw unarmed. And yet here Ethan was calm, patient, making progress where others would have failed. Ethan leaned back slightly, careful not to make sudden movements. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We'll get through this together." The cub looked at him, amber eyes locking on his face. Another rumble escaped its throat. Not a growl, not a warning, something softer, almost curious, almost acknowledging. It took another cautious step closer. Ethan's mind raced. Wildlife control could arrive at any moment. He had minutes, maybe seconds, to solidify the trust. But for now, he had achieved something impossible. He had bridged the gap between human and predator. And in the dim light of Arrivos 9, in a deserted storage bay filled with dust and shadows, a new bond began to form. It was fragile, uncertain, but it was there. Ethan Rayner had entered danger, and he had survived the first test. The storage bay was silent, except for the soft rumble of the injured Ravenclaw cub. Ethan Rayner stayed crouched a few feet away, hands open and visible, his body language calm. Every instinct told him to move slowly, to let the cub decide its next step. Every instinct also told him to stay alert. One wrong move could be fatal. The cub's amber eyes followed his every gesture. Its tail twitched nervously, and its injured rear leg shifted slightly. The wound had stopped bleeding for now, but it was clear that the creature was in pain. Ethan's heart ached for it. He had faced predators before on his home colony, but nothing like this, nothing with 6 glowing eyes and razor-sharp teeth. Ethan took a deep breath and spoke softly. "I know you're scared. I know it hurts. But I won't hurt you. I'm not your enemy." The cub tilted its head, studying him. Its rumbling became quieter, almost like a low sigh, as if it was trying to understand his words. Ethan slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out another ration strip. He held it visibly, making sure the cub could see the movement clearly. Then, with the gentlest motion, he rolled the strip closer across the dusty floor. The cub's nose twitched. Its amber eyes never left Ethan. Step by step, it inched closer to the food, limping slightly. Ethan froze, keeping his body relaxed. Trust was fragile, and he could not risk breaking it with sudden movements. Minutes passed. The cub sniffed the food, then took a cautious bite. Ethan allowed himself a quiet exhale. This was progress, but only the first step. He remembered his grandfather's lessons on predators. Fear and aggression were contagious. If he panicked, the cub would panic. Calmness, patience, and subtle gestures were stronger than any weapon. Ethan slowly lowered himself to sit on the floor, keeping his hands open. The cub's tail lashed once, twice, but it stayed in place. Its amber eyes studied him, curious and wary. Ethan spoke in soft, soothing tones. "You're hurt, and you don't understand this place. All these noises, these smells, it's overwhelming. But I'm here. You're not alone." The cub rumbled again, softer this time, and took another step closer to him. Its movements were cautious but deliberate. Ethan reached slowly into the ration pack and took out another strip, eating a piece himself first. The cub's nostrils flared. It was observing every action, every movement, every sound. Then, in a bold but careful gesture, Ethan nudged the strip toward the cub. It sniffed it again, then nudged it further with its snout. Step by step, the distance between fear and trust began to shrink. The cub's eyes never left him, amber orbs glinting with curiosity and caution. Somewhere deep in the bay, the shadows seemed to shift with every move. Ethan's pulse raced. He knew that wildlife control would arrive eventually, and security officers would never understand what he was doing. To them, this creature was a threat. To him, it was a living being, scared and in pain. Another rumble came from the cub. Ethan tilted his head slightly. It wasn't a growl, it was a soft, almost questioning sound. The creature was testing him, deciding whether it could trust this strange human. Ethan remained still, letting the cub make the choice. Finally, it did. The cub inched forward again, closer than before, until its snout touched the ration strip. It took a small bite, then paused, amber eyes flicking up to Ethan. Another cautious step brought its injured leg near him. Ethan's hand remained open, still and calm. "You're okay," he whispered. "You're safe here." For the first time, the cub's tail relaxed slightly. Its muscles were still tense, but its eyes reflected something new, recognition, maybe, or understanding. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. This was a fragile bond, but it was real. The alarms in the station continued in the distance, but Ethan ignored them. Commander Rawl's voice crackled faintly, ordering him to return. Ethan did not respond. Trust, he knew, could not be forced. It had to be earned. The cub sniffed the ration strip again, then nudged it toward Ethan. He reached out slowly, fingers extended, showing no threat. The creature's eyes followed his hand, assessing. One more cautious step, and it pressed its side lightly against the floor near him. Not touching him yet, too cautious, but close enough to show curiosity. Ethan whispered softly, more to himself than the cub. "I've got you. You're safe. Nothing's going to hurt you now." Minutes stretched, each movement measured, each sound amplified in the quiet bay. Finally, the cub let out a soft rumble, almost like a purr. Ethan's chest tightened. It was a sound of tentative trust. Not complete trust, but enough to know that the cub was not going to attack. He allowed himself another small movement, inching a bit closer while keeping his hands open. The cub watched, then shifted its weight slightly, limping closer again. The bond was forming slowly, but surely. Ethan's mind raced. Every second counted. Wildlife control could arrive at any moment. Security officers were still monitoring the corridors. Yet here, in this shadowed storage bay, a human and a predator were beginning to understand one another. Finally, Ethan leaned back slightly, maintaining eye contact. The cub rumbled again, quieter this time, and lowered itself slightly to the floor, not retreating, not attacking. It was calm, enough to allow Ethan another small step forward. He whispered, "We'll get through this together." The cub's amber eyes flicked around the bay, then back at him. Another soft rumble escaped its throat, almost a sign of acknowledgement. Ethan's heart pounded. The first real step toward trust had been made. Outside, the station continued its alarms and lockdown procedures. But inside the bay, in the quiet and shadow, a new understanding was forming. A bond, fragile and tentative, between human and Ravenclaw cub. Ethan Rayner had faced the first test of danger and survived. But the night was far from over. The cub's trust was only the beginning. The storage bay was quiet now, save for the soft rumble of the injured Ravenclaw cub. Amber eyes watched Ethan Rayner carefully, muscles tense but no longer in full panic. The cub had taken a few bites of the ration strips and now lingered closer than before, testing the waters, measuring the human's intentions. Ethan remained seated on the dusty floor, hands visible, body relaxed. He knew that one wrong movement could destroy the fragile trust forming between them. He spoke softly, almost a whisper, letting the cub hear the tone of his voice rather than the words themselves. "You're safe," he said. "I won't hurt you. Just stay calm. Just a little longer." The cub's tail flicked cautiously, but it stayed in place. Step by step, it inched forward. Its injured leg moved carefully, but it didn't retreat. Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He had grown up around predators, and he knew this. Trust took time, but once it was earned, it could be stronger than fear. He reached into his pocket and pulled out another piece of dried meat. The cub's eyes followed the movement, amber pupils wide. Ethan ate a small piece himself first, showing no trickery, no sudden movements. Then he rolled the meat slowly toward the cub. The cub sniffed the strip and nudged it forward with its snout. Then it paused, amber eyes flicking up to Ethan. A soft rumble escaped its throat, quieter than before. A sound almost like curiosity rather than warning. Ethan stayed still, letting the cub decide. Minutes passed. The cub inched forward, dragging its injured leg slightly, and took the meat. It sniffed Ethan again, then stepped back cautiously. The bond was fragile, yes, but progress was being made. Ethan whispered again. Good. That's it. You're doing well. Nothing to fear. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the doorway. A Quellan security officer had paused, watching them. Ethan didn't flinch. He knew that rushing or sudden movements could panic the cub. He stayed calm, keeping his body low, hands visible, and eyes on the creature. The cub rumbled softly and shifted slightly closer to Ethan. Its amber eyes studied him, then the doorway, then the floor. The movement was slow but deliberate. Trust was growing. Ethan reached for the ration pack again, showing it clearly to the cub. He broke off another strip and held it in his palm, letting the cub see him chew a piece first. The cub's nostrils flared. Step by step, it edged closer, sniffing the air. You're safe, Ethan whispered. I won't hurt you. I just want to help. The cub took another cautious bite from the strip, then nudged it toward Ethan again, as if offering a small acknowledgement of trust. Its tail relaxed slightly, muscles still tense but not coiled for attack. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Somewhere in the distance, the station alarms continued. Ethan ignored them. Commander Rawl's voice crackled faintly through the communicator, ordering him to stay put. Ethan did not respond. Trust, he knew, could not be forced. It had to be earned, and right now that was all that mattered. The cub's amber eyes flicked toward the ration strip and then back to Ethan. Another small step, and it lowered its body slightly, coiling its tail around itself like it was settling in. Ethan stayed still, letting the cub make the decisions. Minutes passed, the silence punctuated only by soft rumbles and the distant hum of the station. Slowly, the cub shifted closer, until it was only a few feet away. Its injured leg flexed carefully as it settled, and it pressed slightly against the dusty floor, closer than it had ever been to a human. Ethan extended his hand slowly, palm open, showing no threat. The cub's amber eyes locked on his hand, muscles tense but aware. Step by cautious step, it inched forward, sniffing his palm, then pressing its snout gently against him. A soft rumble vibrated through the cub's throat. Ethan's chest tightened. This was the first real sign of acceptance. Not full trust, not complete friendship, but a recognition that he was not a threat. You're doing well, Ethan whispered. Good. Just a little longer. He reached into the ration pack again and rolled another strip across the floor. The cub sniffed, nudged it with its snout, and slowly ate it. Each small bite, each cautious movement, was a step toward a bond that seemed impossible just hours ago. Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe. He had entered danger alone, faced a creature capable of killing him in an instant, and had survived. More than survived, he had begun to build trust. The cub's tail twitched once, then slowly uncoiled. Amber eyes, once wide with fear, now reflected curiosity and tentative acceptance. It inched slightly closer, until it lay down beside Ethan, not touching yet, but close enough that the space between them had shrunk. Ethan whispered softly, "See? Nothing to fear. I've got you." A low rumble came from the cub, softer now, almost like a purr. Ethan's heart raced. The bond was fragile, but it was real. He knew that wildlife control could arrive at any moment. But for now, in the quiet of Section 5, a human and a predator were beginning to understand one another. Minutes stretched. The cub lay close, amber eyes studying Ethan, muscles still tense but relaxed. Ethan stayed still, letting the cub decide when to move closer. The first step toward trust had been made, but the journey was just beginning. Ethan Rayner had survived the danger. He had earned the Cub's cautious trust. And somewhere deep in the shadows of Arrivos 9, a new bond was forming, one that might change everything. The night was far from over, but for the first time Ethan felt hope. The storage bay was quiet now, save for the low rumble of the injured Ravenclaw cub. Its amber eyes watched Ethan Rayner closely, muscles tense but no longer in full panic. Step by cautious step, the cub had moved closer over the last few minutes. Now it was lying beside him, not touching, but close enough that their connection could no longer be ignored. Ethan stayed seated, hands visible, body relaxed. Every instinct told him to remain calm, to keep the cub's trust intact. One sudden movement, one harsh sound, could undo all the progress he had made. "You're safe," Ethan whispered softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. You just need to trust me a little more." The cub tilted its head, amber eyes studying him. Its tail twitched lightly, then slowly uncoiled, resting along the dusty floor. The low rumble in its throat shifted, softer now, almost like curiosity, almost like acknowledgement. Ethan's heart pounded. This was the first time the cub had shown anything close to acceptance. He reached slowly into the ration pack and pulled out another strip of dried meat. This time, instead of rolling it toward the cub, he held it in his palm, showing it carefully. The cub's nose twitched as it sniffed the air, eyes never leaving Ethan. Ethan chewed a small piece first, deliberately, letting the cub see that he wasn't going to trick it. Then, softly, he extended his hand, palm open, toward the creature. The cub froze, then stepped closer cautiously, sniffing his fingers. A gentle rumble escaped its throat, louder this time, almost like a purr. Ethan's chest tightened. He had never felt anything like this before. A predator, intelligent and deadly, acknowledging his presence without fear. "You're doing well," he whispered. "I see you're hurt, but you're going to be okay." The cub shifted slightly, resting its head a little closer to him. Its injured leg flexed carefully, testing the floor beneath it. Ethan stayed still, letting the cub decide the next move. Every second of patience mattered. Trust had to be earned. Minutes passed. The cub nudged Ethan's hand lightly with its snout, testing for safety. Ethan let it, remaining still, heart hammering in his chest. This small gesture was a victory, a sign that the cub was beginning to understand him. Outside, the station alarms continued. Commander Rawls' voice crackled faintly, ordering Ethan to stay put. But inside the storage bay, there was only calm. Inside, there was only the cub and the human. Ethan spoke softly, almost to himself. "I've been scared too," he whispered. "I know what fear feels like, and I know how it can control you. But calm can save your life." The cub rumbled in response, softer now, as if acknowledging the truth in his words. Step by cautious step, it inched closer until its body brushed lightly against Ethan's leg. Not in aggression, not in dominance, but in curiosity and tentative trust. Ethan held his breath, careful not to move suddenly. He reached into the ration pack again and pulled out another strip, holding it between his fingers. Slowly, he extended it toward the cub. Amber eyes followed the movement, muscles coiled but not tense. The cub sniffed the strip, then pressed its nose gently against Ethan's hand before taking the food. Another rumble escaped its throat, quiet but distinct, a sign of acknowledgement, of trust forming. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He had risked everything, entered danger alone, and now he was forming a connection with a creature that could have easily killed him. The bond was fragile, yes, but it was real. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I've got you." The cub shifted again, curling slightly closer. Its tail relaxed fully, resting along the floor. Amber eyes watched Ethan intently, but there was no fear now, only curiosity, awareness, and the beginnings of understanding. Minutes stretched in quiet tension. Every sound from the station echoed in the bay, but neither Ethan nor the cub reacted. They existed in their own space, separate from the chaos outside. Trust had been established, fragile but undeniable. Ethan reached slowly, resting a hand gently near the cub's head. The creature didn't flinch. It didn't move away. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, almost allowing Ethan's hand to hover near it. A low, soft rumble vibrated through its throat, and Ethan knew that the moment of true understanding had arrived. Outside, the station continued its alarms, but inside, the bond between human and predator had been forged. Fear had been replaced by cautious trust, hesitation replaced by curiosity. Ethan's mind raced. Wildlife control could arrive at any moment, security officers would likely panic. But right now, nothing mattered except the cub and the fragile connection they shared. "You're not alone anymore," Ethan whispered. "I've got you. You can trust me." The cub shifted slightly again, pressing lightly against Ethan's leg, tail flicking softly. Its amber eyes held something almost human. Acknowledgement, understanding, and perhaps even a glimmer of gratitude. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to relax. The danger was not over, but the bond had been formed. The cub had chosen to trust him, and that choice would change everything. Somewhere deep in the shadows of Arivos 9, in a deserted storage bay, human and predator had reached an unspoken agreement. Neither would harm the other. They were allies now, connected by understanding, patience, and trust. And as Ethan Rayner sat quietly, watching the cub settle beside him, he knew that this moment, this fragile, delicate understanding, was only the beginning. The night was far from over. Challenges still awaited, but now he was no longer alone. He had an ally in the most unlikely of places. The storage bay was quiet, but tension still lingered in the shadows. The injured Ravenclaw cub lay close to Ethan Rayner, amber eyes glowing faintly under the dim emergency lights. Its tail rested along the floor, no longer flicking nervously. The low rumble from its throat was soft, steady, and almost comforting. For the first time since the crash, both human and predator were calm. Ethan remained seated, hands visible, keeping his body relaxed. Every second of patience had paid off. The cub had accepted him, not fully, but enough to allow proximity, interaction, and trust. The bond was fragile, but it was real. Good, Ethan whispered softly. "We'll get through this together. I've got you." The cub's amber eyes flicked toward him, then to the doorway. Somewhere beyond the storage bay, the station's alarms continued to wail. Security officers and wildlife control teams were on their way, and any sudden movement could trigger chaos. But here, in this small corner of the station, a connection had been forged that nothing could immediately undo. Ethan slowly reached into the ration pack again, pulling out another strip of dried meat. He chewed a small piece first, showing the cub he meant no harm. Then he extended the food toward the creature. The cub sniffed it, then gently took it from his fingers, licking the residue briefly. Another soft rumble escaped its throat. This time, it was almost a purr. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "You're safe now, at least for the moment." Minutes passed. The cub shifted slightly, pressing lightly against Ethan's leg, its injured rear leg flexing carefully. He could feel the subtle movements of its muscles, the quiet rumble vibrating through the floor. This predator, once a terrifying threat, was now an ally of sorts, a creature that had chosen to trust him in the darkness of the station. Ethan knew they didn't have much time. Wildlife control teams would arrive soon, and they wouldn't understand the bond he had formed. To them, the cub was a threat, a danger that needed to be neutralized. But Ethan was determined. He would not let it be destroyed. He stood slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. The cub shifted in response, amber eyes tracking every motion. Ethan extended a hand, and the cub pressed its head lightly against it. Another rumble, soft, steady, accepting. "Come on," Ethan whispered. "We have to move. It's not safe here for either of us." The cub limped slightly but followed. His trust was still tentative, but it had chosen him. Ethan led the way through the dimly lit corridors, careful to avoid the main patrol routes and the blast doors that had already locked down several sections. The cub stayed close, eyes alert, tail occasionally brushing against the floor. They reached a maintenance ladder that led to a lower deck. Ethan glanced back. The cub's amber eyes met his, and he nodded slowly. Step by step, they descended, the cub following carefully, injured leg moving cautiously. Every step was deliberate, every movement measured. Trust had to be maintained. The lower deck was quieter, less patrolled, with abandoned corridors and unused storage areas. Ethan felt a sense of relief, though he knew danger was never far away. Here, they could plan, regroup, and perhaps even heal the cub's wounds before the next challenge came. He found a small alcove, shielded from the main corridor, where the cub could rest. Ethan knelt beside it, gently inspecting the injured leg. The cut was jagged, but not fatal. Cleaning it would be difficult, but he had supplies in his pack. The cub remained still, watching him with cautious amber eyes, its trust evident in its calm demeanor. "You're okay," Ethan whispered. "I've got you. We'll fix this, and then we'll find a way out together." The cub rumbled softly in response, a sound that seemed almost like agreement. Ethan carefully cleaned the wound with a small antiseptic wipe from his pack. The cub flinched slightly but didn't move away, allowing him to work. Another sign of trust, something he had not expected in the first hours after the crash. By the time he finished, the cub was resting comfortably, tail curled around its body, amber eyes slowly closing. Ethan sat back, exhausted but relieved. They had survived the immediate danger. They had formed a bond that would guide them through the challenges ahead. Outside, the distant alarms continued, but inside the alcove, human and predator were allies in the darkness. Trust had been built, patience had been rewarded, and an impossible connection had been forged. Ethan spoke softly, almost to himself. "We're going to make it, together. No one's going to hurt you while I'm here." The cub let out a final soft rumble before resting its head fully on the floor. Ethan's hand hovered above it, a gentle presence, ready to defend or comfort if needed. They were partners now, an unlikely alliance formed in chaos, fear, and trust. Somewhere deep in the bowels of Arivos 9, the night stretched on. Outside, danger still lurked, but for the first time since the crash, there was hope. Hope that the cub could survive, hope that Ethan could protect it, and hope that the bond they had formed could overcome even the greatest challenges ahead. And as Ethan Rayner sat quietly beside the injured Ravenclaw cub, he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never forget this moment, the day a human and a predator became allies in the darkness. For now, the immediate danger had passed. But the real journey, the tests, the adventures, the battles was just beginning.